How the IMF and World Bank shaped poor countries' economies for decades. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank have stood at the center of the global financial system. Both institutions claim to help developing nations achieve stability and growth, yet their influence has sparked deep debate across the world. Are they helping poor countries rise, or keeping them trapped in cycles of debt and dependency? The original mission. The IMF and World Bank were created in 1944 at the Bretton Woods Conference, following the chaos of World War II. The IMF's role was to ensure global financial stability, provide short-term loans to countries in crisis, and monitor exchange rates. The World Bank's mission was to fund long-term development projects, building roads, schools, and power plants to promote growth in poorer nations. On paper, both organizations were meant to rebuild economies and prevent future global financial collapses. In practice, however, their methods have often favored the interests of richer nations, especially the United States and its allies, who hold the largest voting shares. When poor countries face a balance of payments crisis or can't pay for imports and debt, they turn to the IMF. But IMF loans come with strict conditionalities, economic policies the borrowing country must follow. These often include cutting government spending, austerity measures, privatizing state-owned industries, reducing subsidies on food, fuel, and electricity, devaluing the national currency. While these reforms are meant to stabilize the economy, they often hit ordinary citizens the hardest. Prices rise, jobs disappear, and public services shrink, deepening poverty instead of reducing it. For example, in the 1980s and 1990s, several African and Latin American nations followed IMF structural adjustment programs. Many saw temporary stability, but long-term stagnation, inequality, and unemployment soared. The World Bank provides development loans for large infrastructure projects, but these projects often rely on foreign companies and consultants. Critics argue that the benefits rarely reach the local population. Instead, poor nations are left with mounting debt, while foreign corporations profit from contracts and resource extraction. Environmental concerns also arise. Dams, mining projects, and industrial zones financed by the World Bank have displaced millions of people, destroyed forests, and polluted rivers, all in the name of development. The combination of IMF and World Bank policies has created what many economists call the debt trap. Developing countries borrow to pay off old loans, trapping them in a cycle where debt repayment consumes most of their national budget. This limits spending on education, healthcare, and social welfare, reinforcing economic dependence on external lenders. As a result, many poor nations effectively lose economic sovereignty. Their budgets, tax policies, and exchange rates are shaped not by their own governments, but by IMF recommendations and World Bank approval. These institutions are not just economic tools, they're also instruments of global influence. The US and other Western powers have often used IMF and World Bank policies to push for political and economic reforms aligned with their interests. In contrast, emerging powers like China and the BRICS alliance are now challenging this system with new financial alternatives, such as the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, and the New Development Bank, NDB. This global power shift could redefine how development finance works, offering poor nations new options that come with fewer political strings attached. The world needs fairer economic cooperation, one that supports sustainable development without sacrificing national sovereignty. Developing countries should have a stronger voice in IMF and World Bank decision-making. Loans must prioritize human development, not just balance sheets. Until then, the IMF and World Bank will remain both lifelines and leashes, rescuing economies in crisis, yet keeping them under the constant shadow of global financial control. Conclusion. The IMF and World Bank were created to bring stability and progress to the world's poorest nations, but over time, their policies have often deepened inequality and dependence. To truly empower developing economies, global finance must evolve, from a system of control to one of cooperation, equality, and genuine growth.